Consider an average poor family living in a rural village in a developing country and some of the everyday challenges they face, and you will quickly discover that access to food and clean water are among the most common struggles. Just 15 crop plants in the world provide 90% of the world's food calorie intake. All of these foods need to be cooked before they can be eaten. We all accept that food and water are basic requirements for human survival. But if these require cooking to make them both edible and safe, then access to a sustainable fuel source becomes fundamental to survival. Without access to fuel, billions of people would be deprived of food. A staggering 3 billion people, almost half the world population, rely on wood and charcoal as their only available energy source to cook their food, distill their water, and heat their homes. In sub-Saharan Africa, on average 90% of the residential energy needs are met by wood and charcoal. This will remain the only fuel option for many more decades to come, as alternative fuel sources will only be affordable with higher incomes. When we think about the big killers in the developing world, HIV, AIDS and malaria immediately spring to mind. And yet the terrifying reality is that one of the greatest global killers is the toxic smoke present in millions of kitchens. An unimaginable 4.3 million deaths every year are caused by chronic exposure to smoke from traditional cooking practices. This is comparable to wiping out 80% of Norway's population. The World Health Organization has ranked exposure to smoke as the 4th worst global risk factor for disease. Exposure to smoke is the world's largest single environmental health risk. Day in and day out, women and children breathe in amounts of smoke equivalent to consuming 2 packets of cigarettes a day. The toxic smoke from traditional cookstoves penetrates deep into people's lungs and causes an array of deadly chronic and acute health effects, as well as many other severe and disabling health conditions. For the billions who rely on open fires to cook their daily food, finding sufficient fuel is an immense challenge. People often have to walk several hours a day to collect firewood, a task typically performed by women and children. Population growth has led to severe levels of deforestation and increased pressure on already scarce resources. Burning wood and charcoal releases tiny black particles known as black carbon into the atmosphere. Black carbon is a powerful agent of global warming and is the second most important contributor after CO2. One of the primary sources of black carbon is traditional cookstoves, responsible for 18% of the planet's warming. In 2010, the entire transport sector combined constituted 23% of total global CO2 emissions, whereas cooking on inefficient cookstoves constituted a staggering 25%. Sustainability is fundamental to any stove project, whether you are considering stoves for individual households or larger stoves for institutions. Ensuring projects are sustainable takes time, and all projects must account for the difficulties involved in changing human behavior. Within this process, a number of vital elements must be acknowledged. Metamorfose encourages local communities to take direct ownership of their project through local partnerships and participation. For the cookstove technology to work, the supply chain has to be locally appropriate and available, and as such we focus on building up local business capacity. Studies indicate that people's personal contribution in both time and monetary terms generates pride of ownership, which in turn secures effective long-term care. Behavioral strategies that aim towards reducing personal exposure to toxic emissions are vital to achieve the full potential of any cooking system. Our workshops have specific focus on best practice concerning structural requirements, fuel and food preparation, ventilation, and cooking processes. Immediate and widespread reduction of wood fuel is the only realistic intervention capable of stopping the severe levels of deforestation and pollution. Reforestation initiatives are therefore a part of our model. The stoves that Metamorfose promotes enjoy a high level of acceptability because they reduce reliance on wood fuel, create a smoke-free environment, are affordable, reliable and easy to maintain, and most importantly, people perceive them as attractive and functional. When neighbours are inspired by the positive impact of our stoves, they aspire to have the same. This places pressure on local leaders to introduce the same initiative into their village. This pattern is then duplicated over and over again. The pollution which is killing people and destroying our planet knows no geographical boundaries and is a global problem. Sustainable solutions therefore require a global commitment.